How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video we're going to talk about this tropical disturbance that's right along the Gulf Coast at this time and determine the impacts you should experience when it comes to rainfall and flooding, where you could receive up to 15 inches of rain, and determine if we will see this develop into Tropical Storm Danielle and make landfall along the Gulf Coast as Tropical Storm Danielle. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So let's begin. I'll take a look at the current water vapor imagery, and this is the disturbance we're watching. So a surface level low is pretty much meandering over the Gulf Coast at this time, which pretty much built off of this mid-level trough that's moving through into the open Atlantic at this time. And we're seeing this surface trough pretty much linger over the same area because it's in a sort of blocking pattern where we do have a ridge that's trying to steer it towards the west, while we have this ridge and this trough just to the north of it trying to steer to the northeast. And right now those two steering currents are pretty much making this stay over the same area, and as a result it's gonna bring heavy rain for a prolonged period and have the possibility of developing as a tropical storm Danielle, because it's going to be over water for quite some time along with various other factors. So take a look at it, you see that it's very disorganized right now. We do see the clouds pretty much drifting towards the southwest at this time. We do have an upper level trough located just to the southeast of it, so it is disorganizing it enough to where we aren't seeing a well-defined center of circulation at this time, and we aren't seeing the thunderstorm activity or the convection pretty much propagate over one area, which is a major problem for this low pressure system, because for a tropical cyclone to form, it needs a central and small center circulation to where all that energy could converge towards, and we're not seeing that at all with these clusters of thunderstorms. But there is that possibility, especially headed more into the future once this storm heads into a less sheared environment, and we do see this this moisture move more towards the Gulf of Mexico over time. So there's certainly that possibility we could see Tropical Storm Danielle in the future. And we also do have a decent amount of dry air to the north of it, which is also inhibiting the amount of convection that would allow for a tropical storm to develop. Now, to show you guys the current probability the National Hurricane Center is giving this, we do have a low 10% chance within the next 48 hours this does develop, but you see that the chance does steadily increase within the next 5 days, where we do see a higher 30% chance, which is still considered a low chance, but it's on the higher end of a low chance. And I wouldn't be surprised if we go into the more over the next maybe several hours or days, we could see that chance rise into a moderate chance if the National Hurricane Center and the computer models depict a more favorable environment for a tropical cyclone to develop, which is certainly a possibility depending on where this thunderstorm activity really moves and the other factors that that possibly could inhibit it in the future. So if I will show you guys the current wind shear map, we do see that for the most part this thunderstorm activity is dealing with a strong amount of wind shear. You see that to the north of it there isn't much shear, but the thing is that to the north of it there's a lot of stable and dry air, so we aren't seeing enough lift in the atmosphere for the pressure to be low enough for the wind speed to increase for a tropical storm to form. And you see that towards the southern side of this storm is dealing with a strong amount of wind shear, so on both sides the conditions aren't really favorable for tropical storm development, at least within the very near future. But that's expected to change as this upper level low continues to move west, and we will see the wind shear laying down just a little bit and potentially the dry air as well. Let me show you guys what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to the humidity levels in the mid levels of the atmosphere within the next couple days. You see right now there's a lot of dry air to the north of it, so there isn't a lot of space to where a well-defined low pressure system could develop. But if I were to continue to move forward, we do see that the atmosphere does moisten up a little bit, and in fact the GFS model wants to develop somewhat of a low pressure system right around the 36 to 48 hour mark, it's unlikely that, or pretty much, this isn't expected to be a tropical storm, this low pressure system, but it's at least the possibility certainly does exist. It's not until, like I said, beyond the 48-hour mark where things become a little bit more interesting, because we do see the atmosphere, the Gulf of Mexico moisten up a little bit. There isn't as much dry air, and we do see quite a bit of moisture throughout the southeast, which represents that there's a high amount of lift right around the Gulf of Mexico for a tropical storm to potentially develop along the Gulf Coast. And we do see even more moisture linger over the same area for several days, which is certainly a concern, because even if this doesn't develop into Tropical Storm Danielle, the heavy rain should still linger over the same area as a result of lack of a strong or well-defined steering current. So we will see rain. Over the same area for several days, which certainly does lead the make the concern greater for the risk of flash flooding and flooding in general. So let me now show you guys the wind shear forecast over the next several days. So you see that there's a decent amount of wind shear as a result of this upper level low, but this upper level low will eventually weaken, and so will the wind shear. So this does have a higher chance in the more long-term future. I'm not talking about long-term, but beyond the 48-hour mark, the chance does increase because the wind shear does increase just a little bit. It won't be a completely shear-free environment 100%, because we still do see a decent amount of wind shear just to the north of it. And of course, we do see another upper-level low that's located just to the southeast of where Tropical Storm Danielle will form. But you see that the wind shear for the most part is fairly light, which could raise the chance of Tropical Storm Danielle forming. But another problem that this is going to run into is the amount of land interaction, because this low pressure system is going to be very close along the Gulf Coast. So it's going to be very difficult for this low pressure system to be in open water enough to really absorb all that latent heat that the ocean provides for a high amount of convection to occur for a tropical storm to form. So if I were to show you guys, you see that there's a decent amount of moisture, but we do see moisture along the Gulf Coast. It's gonna, if this were to develop, this will develop very close along the Gulf Coast. So that's something to pay very close attention to as well, to really determine if this will develop or not. And if I were to continue to move forward with the forecast, we do see that this moisture is pretty much going to linger over the Gulf Coast for the most part, which could make it difficult for Tropical Storm Danielle to form. Of course, the chance is still currently a low chance, but I think there's still a pretty good possibility, almost a moderate chance, we could see Tropical Storm Danielle. Like I said, the factors really all depend on how much this interacts with land, how much wind shear there will be. The wind shear is expected to lighten down within, I'd say, the 2 to 3 days from now, which will allow it to have a small chance of developing. But the land interaction will be key, and that's going to be a little bit difficult to determine, because current steering flows that are pretty much trying to maneuver this storm, it's going to be very difficult to forecast which will win out over the next several days. So if I were to show you guys the 500 millibar height anomaly in the mid-levels of the atmosphere provided from the European model, we do see that we have a ridge right here that's trying to steer it towards the northeast along with this trough and jet stream dip, but we do see another big ridge located towards the western half of the United States, and that's trying to steer it to the south or toward the southwest. And we do see that it's going to be pretty much stuck in this environment between this ridge and this ridge over here, to where it's going to stay over the same area for several days, which will create a very heavy rain threat for the southeast. And we're really going to need to see how strong this ridge is to determine how much land interaction this will deal with. If this ridge ends up being a little stronger, and we will see this convection stay further southward, to where this will have a higher probability of developing. But if this ridge and this trough and the trough's influence is a little stronger, then we will see this move a little bit further northward, and as a result move faster away from the Gulf of Mexico, to where this will have less of a chance of developing into Tropical Storm Danielle. So still a lot of questions regarding the steering flow, because that'll determine the land interaction, but I'll keep you guys updated as a certainty rises or falls with as a certainty rises within the next couple of days. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, we're going to need to pay close attention to wind shear, the dry air. At this point, I think the biggest thing will be the wind shear and the land interaction to determine if this will form. Right now, it's a low chance, but I think that chance could rise over the next several days. But whether this develops into Tropical Storm Danielle or not, what you could be certain for in the southeast is a very heavy rain threat. If I were to show you guys the rainfall forecasted over the next 6 days, we could see up to 10 or over 10 inches of rain towards southeastern Louisiana, as forecasted by the European model, and the GFS model is pretty much stating the same thing, where we see heavy rain move even further northward into Mississippi, into Alabama, and the GFS model is forecasting mostly the same things as what the European model is forecasting. Neither at this point are developing Tropical Storm Danielle, but there certainly is enough convection for that possibility to arise if the computer models do detect a lack of land interaction and a lack of wind shear. But I'll keep you guys updated regarding that. But heavy rain, you should be prepared for that. Flooding is one of the leading causes of weather-related deaths in the United States, so you don't want to mess around with that along the southeast coast. So make sure to keep that in mind, that heavy rain throughout Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama is likely at this point, where you should receive anywhere between 5 to 10 inches of rain along the Gulf Coast, especially towards the New Orleans metropolitan area, as well as Mobile, Alabama, and even moving northward into the Carolina coast, you could receive a good area of 2 to 3 inches of rain. So make sure to pay close attention to that. And in terms of what the computer models are saying on where this next well-defined low pressure system will form along the Gulf Coast, we do see the GFS model does want to develop a low pressure system right around Louisiana and Mississippi, but we all see that it's very close to land, to where it won't absorb enough of that very warm Gulf of Mexico water to really strengthen much more than, let's say, a very weak low pressure system. So so at this point, it's less likely to see we're less likely to see Tropical Storm Danielle, but the chance certainly is higher than when I made my previous video, which is something to be aware of. And taking a look at the other computer model, the ECENS model, we do see the low pressure systems are a little bit further offshore, so that does raise the chance a little bit. But I'll keep you guys updated regarding the steering flow of this low pressure system to determine how far north or south this will move. And taking a look at the current rainfall forecasts provided for the National Weather Service, in that yellow right there, that's 10 to 15 inches of rain within the next 5 days. That is an insane amount of rain. Flooding is likely throughout a lot of the southeast, and flash flooding is certainly a possibility with the amount of thunderstorms that this surface trough will form, which will raise the chance of flash flooding. So make sure to pay close attention to that throughout the southeast. And here's my forecast. Like I said, 15 plus inches of rain is possible within the next 5 days. And right now, the chance is still uncertain for Tropical Storm Danielle, but I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.